and gentlemen, welcome. It's time for the Snap Material Top 5. This was one that we've batted around for a short amount of time, and I was like, no, we definitely got to do it. Evan Bevins, let the people know the idea behind today's Top 5.
Well, we have expressed multiple times our admiration and appreciation of the Luchador variants. And I unlocked the Luchador, I think it was the Red Guardian Luchador, and I said, now I'm one step closer to a full Luchador deck. But if you are going to try to attempt a full Luchador deck in Snap, you won't be playing with a full deck because there are only 11 official Luchador variants.
Right.
I think you or some other people have suggested that the Venom title belt variant could fill a spot on there. And then there's the Null variant where he has taken the belt from Venom.
Yes.
So how about we do the top 5 cards that should get a Luchador variant instead of just saying, hey, these guys would look cool as Luchadors or gals, which is a valid bit of criteria and should be considered in this. Let's look at the 11 cards that have Luchador variants and see who would work well to make this a playable deck. Since we're talking about all the synergy in the upcoming Fantastic Four season, I will say there is not much synergy among the Luchadors.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a tough one. And I went into it like you were talking about. I looked at these cards. I was like, what would kind of work with these? It is really tough. I mean, did you run down these cards that we do have out there?
Here are the Luchador variants. I'll go in order from least to greatest in terms of cost and power. We start with M'Baku, crouching, about to leap from the turnbuckle. Then we have Titania, who has been a professional wrestler. 1 cost 2 power M'Baku, 1 cost 5 power Titania. M'Baku's ability is, if you haven't drawn him, he jumps onto an open spot on the space with the least power, a source of endless snap joy.
Oh, yes.
Titania switches sides whenever a card is played. Then we have Red Guardian, who you might know from me recommending to Jesse every time he says he has trouble dealing with card. Well, have you tried Red Guardian? Have you sprayed Windex on it? Strong guy who gives, a +6 if you have 1 or 0 cards in your hand.
Yep.
And then Sabretooth, who, if he's destroyed, comes back as a 3 cost 5 power card, comes back as a 0 cost 5 power card back in your hand. Warpath gets a +4 if one of your locations is empty. Drax, who is it also a +4 that he gets on reveal if your opponent played a card at that location? Yeah,
I think so. +4. Yep.
The Sentry, 4 cost 9 power, who creates the 4 cost -9 power void in the far right lane, and he can't be played in the far right lane. And then we have White Tiger, on reveal creates a Tiger Spirit card with 8 power. And Taskmaster, 6 cost 0 power, copies the power of the last card you played. If you are using this deck, you probably want to play him after Blob, 6 cost 0 power, who absorbs cards up to a certain point. Probably not many cards left in the deck at this point. And you see the problem. Not a lot of these cards work well together. So we need more Luchador variants in general. We need at least one more to make a deck. We're offering these helpful suggestions to Second Dinner about who needs a Luchador variant and how they could work with these other cards.
All right. So we're just looking for the one that would complete this. Is that how you went into this thinking?
I looked at cards that work with the Luchador theme because a lot of these guys are bruisers, how they would work thematically or in tandem with these cards. Put all 5 of them in, maybe they could work together, the cards on your list. We don't have a lot of hard and fast rules. It's mostly subjective, except for the list we did about the cards you don't want to see coming out of the X Mansion. My top 5 could barely have been the top 10 as an addition to your list. But most of the time, it's pretty subjective. So these are just the cards you think need variants, whether that's thematically, how it appears, or how it would work with these other cards.
Okay.
There's no wrong answers.
I'm rethinking my number 1 right now.
Cerebro. Maybe Cerebro is the wrong answer.
Cerebro needs to be a mask. That's really all it needs to be. Make it a mask variant somehow to where it goes over and becomes a mask. When I looked at this, I was looking at these cards going, okay, what would kind of work? I do have a couple on here that do work well, but I also was looking at them and going, will these cards work with the other cards that I'm suggesting? So what may end up happening here is you may see that some of these cards that I'm suggesting, well, may not be the 12th card in this deck, but we could substitute maybe 2 or 3 off my list and put them in here along with the rest of these luchadors, a select few of these luchadors, and then we have a deck. But
I tell you, I have a huge list of cards that I thought about but didn't make it. I do have one on the outside looking in that I would like to give special mention to.
Okay.
The first thing I did is I made a deck with the 11 luchador cards, even though I don't have all the variants. I made a deck with those cards, and I'm like, okay, autofill, what card do you say would complete this deck? And I figured at worst, that one gets number 5 on my list. Okay. But it did not. Because when I hit autofill gave me the hood. Maybe the logic is you got a lot of cards that don't work together, so you need a low-cost, high-power card to add to this mix, and the hood gives you that with the demon. Maybe that's what it was thinking. I could not in good conscience put the hood on there when there were other cards that I thought had a pretty good chance of making my top 5 that ultimately didn't.
Okay. So you want to leave those till the end, or you want to go through?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because then otherwise, I mean, we'd probably have a pretty good idea of, and I bet if we both have sizable, as they say on the Dan Le Batard show, OLIs, outside looking in, we're probably going to name each other's cards on there anyway. So, yeah,
good point.
I mean, if we come up with one, you say, hey, I considered that one or whatever. But, yeah, I think we save that and just get right to our top 5. Now, was the hood on your list?
The hood was not on my list.
It's not, because the hood is the worst. And I haven't even seen Ironheart yet.
I'm taking out my ones on here that I already have. Here we go. And then I think that's it. Okay. Well, then, let me just...
What you had to wrestle with? Was it hard to pin down?
It was, as a matter of fact. It was. Well, let me start out with number 5.
Armbar.
All right. Yeah, we're going to start naming moves now. I want to go ahead and start with Silk. Honestly, I'm looking at these cards now. There's no rhyme or reason to even have her in there other than the fact that she's going to bounce around. Now, with what's upcoming on my list, let me put it this way. I am a bit of a wrestling fan. I know you get wrestling references. So at some point you were watching wrestling probably in the 80s as well.
Yep.
And maybe even the 90s during the Attitude Era. I don't know.
The Hulk Hogan cartoon was my gateway.
Okay. All right. So
I interviewed Roddy Piper once.
Was it for the Zombies movie that they were filming?
Yes. Zombies, pro wrestlers versus zombies.
Have not watched that yet. Roddy Piper.
Our mutual friend Nathan Arnold was an extra in it.
Was he really?
Yeah.
I was going to say they had a lot of...
got mistaken for a wrestler at one point.
There were a lot of wrestlers from around here that were part of it. Yeah. One of these days I want to sit back and watch that because I know half of the people in it. Is it really?
Yeah.
I think I know half the people in it, which is crazy. Anyway, so what's going through my head is like, okay, luchadors. I'm thinking, okay, well, I need a luchador deck. What fits a luchador? Normally, when you saw them, especially in WCW, let's say in mid to late 90s, the luchador showed up. There was a guy by the name of Psychosis, Rey Mysterio. Rey Fenix is one that's a luchador right now. Penta. These guys took to the skies, moved. And those types of wrestlers were known for that acrobatic style. That kind of influenced a lot of my list here. These cards are a mishmash. Well, let's stick with the mishmash theme then. All right, fine. I'll throw Silk in there. She can jump around all over the place. And I want to see her, whatever crazy costume that she would come up with. There you go. We got some kind of spider costume for her in the ring. There you go. My number 5 for this crazy mishmash of a luchador deck. Silk. There you go. What's your number 5, Evan Bevins?
All right, my number 5 would not really add anything to the deck, but probably the most famous professional wrestler in Marvel Comics. Doesn't get a lot of love on this show. even though we love the character. But Marvel Snap has done him wrong. The least they could do is give the Thing a Luchador variant.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Thing, I haven't read the original stories, but I know he was part of the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation.
Correct.
He took on some notable characters there, and he's a big bruiser like a lot of the guys that already have the Luchador variants. They could even use his helmet mask from the 90s. In the Overpower card game, he had a card that used that, and it was called Bucket o' Shame.
Because he's embarrassed with the way he looked, yeah.
Yeah, maybe with, I was looking at some of those covers today, and he had this black kind of singlet thing on. So, maybe something like that. Give Ben Grimm a Luchador variant.
Well, I'm going to pull this episode hasn't aired yet, but we did a recent top 5. It was me, Derry, Dean, and Matthew Price. We did a top 5 Series 2 1991 Marvel cards.
Nice.
So I'm going to pull a Derry in this because I had Thing as my number one. No, Sea Devils, no. I had Thing as my number one. So
you were supposed to stop me.
No.
You made these rules, man.
Well, here's the thing.
Here is the thing.
I'm going to take Thing off my list, and I'm going to replace him because we have a rundown of all these outside looking ins. I have another one I'm going to put on my list. Really, I didn't have much of a justification of putting Thing number 1, other than what you just said for him being at number 5, which means he just kind of sits here. But the reason, him being in an actual wrestling league in the Marvel comics made sense. I went so far as to go to ChatGPT and say, okay, I need you to do me a favor and justify him as being a luchador. Help me flesh this out. El Coloso del Yancey Street. He would definitely be in the super heavyweight El Coloso division. He would be a face, of course. Don't push him too far. His entrance theme. Okay, so it comes up with an entrance theme, and I want to read this to you. The name of the entrance theme is called the Clobber Time 95. A pounding fusion of old school Bronx hip hop and mariachi bass. As the beat drops, orange pyro explodes from the corners while a massive stone wall rises behind him and shatters open as he steps through it, arms raised. His signature moves are the Yancey Slam, a two-handed overhead power bomb that echoes through the arena, the Brooklyn Avalanche, corner running body press that crushes heels like paper, the Sidewalk Smash, a spinning sidewalk slam followed by a ground punch that rattles the ring, and his final signature move, the Cobblestone Clutch. The Cobblestone Clutch, a surprise submission hold rarely used, but when he locks it in, you feel it. Can you guess what his finisher is called?
It has to be Clobberin Time, right?
Clobberin Time. Ben bounces off the ropes, raises one massive rocky fist to the sky, and levels his opponent with a running, spinning punch. The ring shakes, the lights flicker, and the crowd counts the pin before the ref can. So there you go. That is, and they even have some of his the crowd chant, which by the way, in Spanish, clobberin, just clobber. Yes, he will yell out to the crowd, "Es clobberin time, baby." There you go. There it is. So yeah, I'm glad you put him on the list. I knew I was going to for sure, and I had a feeling that we were going to overlap with him. He deserves to be on here just because of his history with the comics themselves. So there you go. I appreciate you putting him on at number 5. I think he would be the mishmash here of what we got. It's like he'd fit in just fine. He'd be the big face of this group. All right, going around to your number 4.
Number 4. One thing that the 11 luchadors lack is a 2-cost card. I looked at a lot of 2-cost cards and also tried to think who could pull off the look. He could pull off the look. I'm not sure he would pull off the attitude. I don't think he would like being labeled a luchador because he's a bit of a USA first kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
But I got US Agent.
Oh, interesting. All right.
US Agent, has one of the great costumes in comics. And, he may not be a big guy, but he's a bit of a bruiser. stubborn. I could see him fitting in, and there's a vacancy in that deck for 2-cost cards.
I would agree. Definitely.
Now, the downside is you've got a lot of 4, 5, and 6-cost cards, and they wouldn't want to be hanging around him. But, he could take on some bigger opponents and give you an element you're lacking in this deck.
That's true. I mean, you got to think about what you're going to be facing on the other side, and he makes a difference. He can make a difference for sure.
Some people may be okay with waiting until turn 3 to start playing, but I like to get some out there earlier, and U.S. Agent makes you think about putting a card down in that lane.
All right. Okay, so going to my number 4. So I talked about luchadors and their acrobatics. If I was to tell you, let's see if Evan Bevins can read my mind. If I was to say, okay, I want an acrobat that can shoot people.
Oh, no, I just cable.
If I asked you to provide me with one superhero, that's going to narrow it down, that possesses acrobatic tendencies, but is also a powerhouse, where would you go? Where would your mind take you?
It would either take me to Westchester or Queens. So I'm going to say Spider-Man.
Okay. All right. It is the Beast. The Beast. So now we're not going to go furry version here. All right. This card is going to be his human ape-like form, I guess. The guy that could hang from the ceiling by his toes. That version of Beast, you throw a mask on him and he would look perfect as a luchador. Now, to get into the mechanics, one of the cards on here is Century throws that void on one lane and you Beast will send him right back to your hand. You don't have to worry about the void anymore.
There you go.
He helps out there, and I don't think he really fits in with too much else. I mean, other than if you want to get another Red Guardian out there for one less power the next turn, then great. You can smack somebody else with Red Guardian. He can drop an elbow from the top rope or something. But I like Beast for my number 4. And now I guess we'll get into my number 3. So my number 3... Again, I'm going with these luchador ideas in my mind. One of the few things that I can remember from back in the day, there were a couple heels by the name of the Villanos. The Villanos had a mask, and you could not see anything as far as their face goes other than their eyes. They had a space for their nose and their mouth. A lot of times, one of the Villanos would be in trouble. He'd be getting pounded on. The good guy would be pounding on him. And then the ref would turn their back to go talk to somebody in the corner. Well, the other Villano would grab that Villano, pull him out, and then he would jump in place, and nobody would know the difference. And so now you got a fresh Villano in there, and he's able to get up and come back. So he's not as beat up as the other Villano was. My number 3, throw a mask on him. It's Multiple Man.
Oh, okay.
So Multiple Man comes in. Now we got to figure out a way to move him, which is not happening with these other cards. That's the only problem. So I had to, that's probably my only biggest concession here is that I don't know if there's a way I can get him moved.
El hombre multiple. I have no idea.
That's perfect. So he's in there. And if you can get him, if you can figure out a way to get him moved over, better hope for the Bifrost or something like that. Now you have a fresh Multiple Man in the vein of the Villanos, Villano 4 and Villano 5. There you go. So that's my number 3. Not the greatest, but hey, there you go.
Oh, I like it. Okay, well, I did a little adjusting to my list already. This one was a little higher, but I realized I was getting his mechanics mixed up with somebody else. The only problem with this, he complements a card. There's a luchador card in here that has a very specific effect. If you're not at least trying to get that effect, there's no reason to have this card in your deck whatsoever. The problem is he does work well with this effect. Making him a luchador would be really difficult because the mask would be enormous.
Oh, boy.
I like Strong Guy. I like Strong Guy as a luchador, but you can't have Strong Guy in your deck unless you got a way to clean out your hand. And nobody does that better than my best frenemy, MODOK. Now imagine MODOK as a luchador.
I don't know. Does he have shoulders? How do you pin this man?
It's a parachute. His mask is a parachute. And originally I was like, oh yeah, and then he can destroy Sabretooth, but that's destroy, not discard. So I had to knock him down a peg. because he was less useful, but he would complement Strong Guy, and he would be a pretty funny looking luchador.
Oh my goodness!
So he would be a modal, mobile organism designed only for lucha libre.
Ah, man, that's nice. I like
Modal.
Modal.
Designed only for wrestling.
Okay. All right. Well, then that takes you to your number 2.
Yes, who was originally my number 3.
Okay.
But now we're talking about ways to make this deck useful. This character might not seem like an ideal fit for luchadors, and obviously you know more about luchadors and wrestling than I do, but I get the feeling that a lot of luchadors are showmen, right?
Oh yeah, they're something else.
They're performers. They can captivate an audience and hold their attention. You might even say, even though it's athletic, they're telling a story.
Okay.
Through their acrobatics. Let's give a golden mask to the god of stories, Loki.
Oh boy.
Because you take a look at this motley crew of luchadors, this deck that has almost nothing in common, and you think, I bet my opponent made a more coherent deck than I did. So you play Loki, and suddenly you've got your opponent's deck.
That's good.
And hey, your bonuses are based on what you start with. So you started with a luchador deck, but Loki, a little sleight of hand, he's also the god of mischief and the god of lies. And so suddenly you made your luchador deck, but your opponent did the work of defeating themselves. Thanks to Lucha Loki.
Lucha Loki. That's actually really good. Number 2 is actually number 3's manager. We're going to call this their valet because that's usually. But when times get tough, they can step in the ring and hold their own if they need to, and that will be Aranya. Aranya, and maybe I'm playing in with the Mexican lucha libre.
You don't even have to change your name.
Do not even have to change her name. She can get in there. She can help multiple man 1 and 2 generate and actually make a difference possibly. She can also move some of these other cards here that just by chance, if you want to get Sentry over to the right-hand side, you can do that. Grab Blob and then put him where you want. Well, actually, you can't move him. He is the Blob.
No, they took that away.
So he can be moved.
Yeah, they decided he was too powerful, so they took one of the most comic accurate effects in the game away.
Makes a lot of sense.
Second dinner trying to get themselves more money. No big deal. Second dinner trying to improve gameplay and daring to cross comic book continuity. How dare you?
Right. Plus, we needed another female representative here as well. So, I
believe they call those senoritas.
Senoritas. That is correct. So we now have, at least if you're looking at my list, I've got 4 senoritas.
So my list is sexist now. Okay, I get it. I see how it is.
Well, but Aranya's in there. She's going to help out the multiple man. And if she needs to hop in the ring and hold her own against Titania, she can. All right. So there you go. And then I guess that takes me to my number 1. And I'm really curious as to what your number 1 is going to be. But when I thought of this list, this was the first name that came to mind as far as acrobatics, as far as lucha libre, but one that I want to see that has, we get this mask on this person. They are in the air most of the time because they are Batroc Zeliper.
I thought about him. Definitely thought about him.
That's great. So Batroc, yeah, clearly he works better with my list. When you got Silk bouncing around, Batroc can follow around as well.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I spent more time thinking about wrestling references than I did justification of being on this list because it's hard for me to come up with stuff. But I thought of him because he's in the air most of the time. He's moving around. Silk and would bounce around. He's not going to fit very well into this deck, but again, it's a mishmash. I feel like I'd have to take at least 2 or 3 out and substitute 3 or 4 from my list in there somehow. But anyway, there you go. That is my number 1, Batroc the Leaper. I want to see him with a mask. I want to see him leaping from the top rope. That's in his name, for crying out loud. Evan Bevins, what's your number 1?
Batroc was definitely under consideration, even though I had a few that were more thematically part of it. I gave the most weight to the ones I thought could help out with this deck. You can make an argument that Loki it has the best chance of turning this deck into something workable. But I went with this one for a couple of reasons. He has the potential, even though he's not a character that I see leaping around, not a character that's usually masked. I leave it to the folks doing the wardrobe to shine him up and give a good presentation. In terms of making this deck work, we need a Luchador Variant for Merlin. He's a 2-cost. There's a void there.
Right.
He's going to generate some cheap cards because there's not a lot of low-cost cards in this deck. He can upgrade the cards with Polymorph, and especially, as a friend of mine pointed out, Polymorph is a great card and a great reason to run Merlin alongside the Sentry.
Oh.
Polymorph on the void, and you go from a 5-cost -9 power to a 6-cost gotta be more than -9 power.
Yeah. That's nice.
So he fills the 2-cost void. He upgrades Sentry. You could also play Polymorph on White Tiger, because once she produces that Tiger Spirit, that 1 power is not really doing you a whole lot of good. Turn her into a 6-cost. Use Omniversal Presence to change the location to a ring of your choosing, or put one of those cards back with Once in Future to get you some more energy to get some of those higher cost mismatched cards out there. So no, you won't be flying around, but get him a good tailor and get those cards out there. I'm not a wrestling expert. I don't know if the managers are as prevalent in luchador wrestling as they are in some professional wrestling. I have seen that's where he fits in, but it's going to take some magic to get that deck into anything coherent. And that's where we need Loki and Merlin.
You've done a fantastic job here, and everything that you're saying makes sense. I want to show you a picture real quick. Merlin doesn't need to be a wrestler, but he can be a manager.
That's Rorschach.
Kim Chi, I think, used to manage Abdul the Butcher, I believe, or the Ugandan giant Kamala. He used to, so he had a luchador mask on. He was just a manager. And if you told me that, Merlin, older guy, and throw a mask on him, and then he's just out there whipping things out for all his players in order to make them better, that's exactly what a good manager would do. So I think that is a perfect spot for Merlin. Let's go ahead. We'll get into our also rans, the people that we had on our list but didn't make the cut. I'll go ahead and start first.
Okay.
If I had Baron Zemo, he's already got a mask, but my goodness, you need a good heel for your wrestling league.
The original Baron Zemo who accidentally glued his mask to his head?
Could very well be. Also, you've got Blob in here, so a good idea is to get cards, and pulling them from the other person's deck is always helpful, but you're also able to produce more cards if you got Baron Zemo in your hand. I also had Gladiator, just because I remember him wrestling a few times with Ben Grimm. Now, as to whether he's going to do much here in this deck, it's just like he fits with everybody else that has some kind of random ability. You can just bring people in and obliterate them, hopefully. Then we have Hercules. I was thinking about my move aspect of what I had in my deck here already, bouncing some people off of there. Hercules also has a very, there was a Hercules Hernandez in the 80s WWF that I can remember.
He's a brute. He's a grappler. He definitely fits.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And then I had Iron Fist on here as well. Iron Fist is like martial arts, hand-to-hand. He's not using guns. He's not using weapons. He is definitely wrestling themed, I guess you would say. And I think that's it. That's all I had for my also rans. You got your list there?
Yeah, I tossed everybody on there that I thought maybe, so I won't go through all of them. But in terms of big bruisers who just fit the mold for some of the other cards, Luke Cage. And I mean, in the 70s, Luke was a flashy dresser, so he'd be right at home here.
Yep.
And then, let's see, I also thought of, because there aren't a lot of low-cost cards, and you might have some turns you don't play much, Sunspot. I think he's a little farther south than luchadors tend to be, I don't know, the South American wrestling scene. In terms of trying to make cards that don't work together, we talked earlier about Nightmare.
Oh, yeah. I thought that's where you were going with Merlin.
Yeah. And then the one prominent luchador name that I did know, also a 2-cost, but I just couldn't figure out how to make the mask work, Mysterio.
Oh, yes.
Just imagine this like luchador mask stretched over a fishbowl.
Yeah.
Zorn already has a mask.
True.
And then the other one that I thought of, because some would say he already dresses like a Mexican wrestler, is the Vision.
Okay.
Remember the Halloween spectacular episode of WandaVision? His comic accurate costume was a result of her fondness for Mexican.
That's right.
So, but Jesse, I know I said anything went on this, and there were a lot of different criteria we could do, but I did do one hard line to limit myself that I thought might be stretched into a top 5. And then it became something more, because I didn't allow myself to include characters who would be great luchador variants who aren't in the game yet. But there are a few.
I can't wait to hear this list, because I actually had some stuff run through my head.
Then I thought, you know what? Why just limit this to a list? We've talked before, and they've done a good job of getting Fantastic Four first steps. I think the season after that has something to do with Galactus and his heralds. But why just a series of variants? Why not a whole season? Why not unlimited class wrestling season on Snap? And I just came up with these. I did not come up with powers for them. I'm sorry,
okay.
Abilities. But the season pass card to embody this and to get people interested. It's not a headliner, but more people need to know this character exists, and this is the perfect spotlight. El Vampiro.
El Vampiro.
The Eternal, who is a luchador, who you've heard me talk about this before. Thor number 290. In the midst of the multi-year celestial eternal saga, Thor gets kicked out of Asgard, is flying through Los Angeles, and runs into a dude dressed as a vampire bat who turns out to be an eternal luchador named El Vampiro, bitterly fighting against El Toro Rojo, a deviant luchador who did not make the list just because some people are too obscure. El Vampiro had a brief shot at fame because he was in an early draft of Eternals. It's a shame we didn't get him, but he's the foremost luchador in Marvel Comics. And I mean, immortal luchador dressed as a vampire bat. I don't know who doesn't.
Yeah, that's perfect, dude.
Thor number 290 is one of my favorite comics. It's just insane. Yeah, we talked about it. Billy, Edmore, and I did a lengthy read through of the Eternal Saga and Thor. That issue was in it. It's a highlight. It still had to do with the Eternals before Odin's eyeball told Thor stories about operas for 4 issues. All of that is accurate. All of that is accurate. So there you go. The season pass card for unlimited class wrestling, El Vampiro. First featured card. Had a chance to be a well-known Marvel luchador. Was at one point attached, the subject of a film with none other than Bad Bunny attached to play El Muerto. A 2-issue story in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Peter David wrote it. I went back and looked at the wiki. It had something to do with a superhero luchador, and to cement his powers, he had to unmask a hero. He set up a bout with Spider-Man to do it.
Okay.
Sony was like, okay, Venom, Craven as a poor little rich Punisher. Hey, Bad Bunny, you want to be a luchador? Sure. Okay, let's go. Sadly, that has fallen through, and I don't know if we're ever going to see that or Donald Glover as the Hypno Hustler.
No.
Your week 1 featured card for unlimited class wrestling, El Muerto. Now, we go actually to unlimited class wrestling, and sorry, not Wesley Snipes, but D-Man. Dennis Demolition Dunphy, whose costume looks like Wolverine and Daredevil's laundry got mixed up, and who I first met in the Heroes Return Avengers as a homeless guy raiding the Avengers fridge. Captain America says he's an Avenger. That's good enough for me. And he was one of the, again, I need to go back and read those unlimited class wrestling stories, but he was in the Thing series when the Thing was part of unlimited class wrestling.
Love it.
D-Man. Another of the Thing's sparring partners, was Vance Astrovic, aka Marvel Boy, aka Justice, aka
No
Vance
way.
Astro.
Wow.
And so we can finally get Marvel Boy / Justice in here and finally get another new warrior besides Debris.
That's great.
And before our last featured card, we got to throw some season 4s in there.
Right.
Some people that fit the theme but may not be super popular. So for one, we have Lamar Hoskins, who you might know better as Battlestar.
Oh, yes.
And who was also Bucky for 5 minutes and is part of the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation.
Wow. Okay.
The guy who got his neck broken against the Stone Pillar in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Spoiler alert. And then another Unlimited Class Wrestling veteran. We can't call her Ms. Marvel, though, because that would get confusing with Kamala Khan. I've only ever seen her referred to as She-Thing on HeroClix figures. So let's just go with Sharon Ventura. Blunt woman, wrestler, superhuman, love interest to the Thing. We could have her in her costumed wrestler persona or her rocky female Thing. There's opportunities for variants there.
Yeah.
Speaking of variants, Jesse.
Oh, my goodness.
You got to have some variants of existing characters. So obviously the Thing Luchador variant would be there. But also there would be a Thor variant that's just Don Blake with a handkerchief over his face because that's what he had to do when El Toro Rojo stole his walking stick, not knowing that it's the walking stick that turns into Mjolnir. So as El Toro Rojo was about to kill a regular human wrestler in the ring, Don Blake puts on a mask like an Old West bandit and climbs in the ring after him to take back his weapon.
Wow. That's great.
And then some of the other variants. But Jesse, there's one more card, 100 season card. And if Unlimited Class Wrestling doesn't get your interest, maybe this one will. He did enter the wrestling ring and take on the Thing. I believe it was in the Thing number 30. He has ties to a lot of other Marvel characters. The Beyonder.
Got in the ring.
I
Wow. Man.
I haven't read that issue, but he ended up humiliating the Thing, which led to one of my all-time favorite Thing moments when the Thing decided to, get back at the Beyonder and made a deal with none other than Mephisto to do it. Mephisto was working on behalf of a bunch of cosmic entities who thought the Beyonder posed a threat to all existence. So he was empowering different superhuman agents to take out the Beyonder. All they had to do was touch him.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so then Ben Grimm, with his power amped up by magical means, goes to settle a score with the Beyonder, realizes Ben Grimm's better than that, and then turns and faces dozens of Marvel's most threatening supervillains, all of whom just need to lay a finger on the Beyonder to destroy 1/3 of the universe and the Beyonder. And Ben Grimm says it's clobberin time.
Oh, my goodness. What a list. Some bonus content right there. And Beyonder would be the card. He'd be the big one that season. So yeah. Good stuff. You brought it this time, Evan Bevins. That's for sure. This was a good one. I'm really curious as to what that 12th Lucha variant is going to be. We're going to have to keep an eye out, see what it's going to be. Let's get into plugs. Let everybody know what you are doing right now over there on Asterisk 51 and anything else you've got going on.
As I've said before, if you like the way I think but hate the way I talk, you can just read my thoughts on comics, movies, and all sorts of other assorted weirdness over at asterisk51.blogspot.com. After this, I'm going to be putting the finishing touches on my post for Shark Week featuring Shark Attack, which is a movie in which sharks attack people. Let's see. I'm actually coming up on my 300th post before long. Got something special planned for that. I'm still looking for a good long-term project, but in the meantime, I've been doing things like missing links, go back and finally read comics that have eluded me over the years and runs or stories I was collecting. Hashtag Dollar Tree Cinema, which Shark Attack is going to be part of. Hashtag Free Comic Friday. Seeing as how it was just recently Independence Day, you can also go back and check out my series on that time Captain America became a werewolf, because what better way to celebrate the founding of our nation than with its foremost symbol getting really hairy.
That is right. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to this on the Source Material Comics feed, where we talk about comics, talk about Marvel Snap. We talk about 90s comics as well. So the Source Material Comics podcast recently dropped. We're actually still in the middle of the Joker stories, which our last show was on the 23rd of June. Source material had Joker Presents a Puzzle Box. And then we got one more after that, which will be the Joker War Saga, which should be airing in a couple weeks.
Was that the one with Clown Hunter?
Clown Hunter's in
yeah.
that one.
Yeah, I read that one.
Can you believe it or not, one of my favorite characters.
How would he be as a luchador?
Good question. Very good question. Then we have coming up on Unspoken Issues, what just passed for July 4th. Unspoken Issues aired our discussion on Fighting American #1. Agent America. I swerved everybody there a couple of days ago on the West Wing show. Joe Simon and Jack Kirby got together and created this patriotic superhero. And then Rob Liefeld grabbed a hold of the Fighting American and let everybody know all about it. Fighting America #1 that aired this past Friday on July 4th. We got All-Star Superman coming up for source material. That me and Mark Radulich talked about All-Star Superman. So that's going to be airing on the 7th. And then, right here, you can tune in about once a month. You can hear me and Evan Bevins get together and talk about Marvel Snap, usually about 4 or 5 episodes in the middle of the month. Top 5, previous season, next season, all that good stuff. Go check out the YouTube. We got some good stuff over there. Just about every show that you hear on the podcast airs over there as well. So we're getting out of here. That is Evan Bevins. I am Jesse Starcher. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.